Protests in Mexico City turned violent over the weekend.
Protesting gentrification and mass tourism.
In Mexico City, there were protests against tourism and a high cost of housing when a small group of men started trashing things. The city is the most expensive in Latin America, but the average salary is just $341 per month, while the average monthly expenses are almost $2,500 for a family of 4. Housing is the biggest concern. A 3-bedroom apartment is listed on average for $2,800 per month, making Mexico City the most expensive city in Latin America. The city is to Latin America what New York is to the West. That's what these protesters were criticizing. But are foreigners or is the government to blame for this? This is how Mexico City was terribly mismanaged, with hindsight.
Nuestro objetivo es que sigan llegando a la Ciudad de México nómadas digitales.
In 2022, Scheinbaum was Mexico City's mayor, and she saw an opportunity.
Si solamente el 5% del mercado disponible de trabajadores remotos estadounidenses, estaríamos generando en la Ciudad de México 1.4 billones al año.
She entered an agreement with Airbnb to boost the number of digital nomads.
So I found this map that shows exactly where these Airbnbs are, and most of them are concentrated here in this area. And we know from the data that these are mostly digital nomads because the average nights booked is 83. This is not normal tourism.
I want to understand exactly the impact of this decision, so let's start at the beginning. In the 1980s, Mexico City was a different place. The city is situated in a valley and is divided into 16 boroughs. The central borough, Cuauhtémoc, is where now popular neighborhoods like La Roma and Condesa are situated. In the 1980s, they were already home to upper-middle-class families, but these neighborhoods were in decline. Many families were moving to higher-end areas like Polanco and Lomas de Chapultepec, and many homes were abandoned or they were very poorly maintained. A big issue was that Mexico City had very strict rent controls. A landlord could almost not increase the rent of tenants even if market values rose. This led to many landlords not being able to properly maintain their houses, and Mexico City's housing stock was deteriorating. That's when disaster struck. An earthquake, measuring 8.1 on the Richter scale, destroyed hundreds of buildings, and the neighborhoods that were hardest hit were in La Condesa, Roma, and other parts of Cuauhtémoc. This left even more homes abandoned or damaged because strict rent controls made it unattractive for people to invest in rebuilding these homes. Like everybody in Mexico City knows, these neighborhoods are often the hardest hit. That's because they're sitting on what used to be a lake. This lake used to surround Tenochtitlan, the capital of the Aztec Empire, and the soft sediments aggravate the earthquake damage. The once affluent neighborhoods were destroyed, empty, and government policies discouraged private investment. So property values dropped. But in the subsequent years, a lot changed. In the 1990s, Mexico City became more integrated with global markets. They joined a free trade accord, NAFTA, which encouraged foreign investment, and they finally got rid of those rent controls.
So these neighborhoods were once home to upper middle class families, but a combination of factors like government policies and the damage of this earthquake created a situation where these buildings were very poorly maintained and in low demand.
Investors bought these buildings for pennies on the dollar, and as it turned out, it was much more profitable to rent to rich foreigners than to local families. And that set the pretext for the rise of Airbnb. Today, 1 in every 4 homes in La Condesa is an Airbnb.
So you can imagine how locals must have felt when suddenly all these mostly American foreigners came in and basically pushed out the locals in their neighborhood. And I'm gonna get into that. But first, have you heard about this? More people are consuming pirated TV shows. I can kind of relate to this. I recently wanted to rewatch Dexter, which is one of my favorite TV shows, but the problem was that this was not available through any of my streaming subscriptions. But this is where CyberGhost VPN had the solution.
Simply choose one of the 100 plus countries they support and turn it on. Your internet will now be redirected through that country.
What you need to understand is that many of the TV shows that you're looking for are actually available on your subscription, but they're just restricted to certain countries. In my case, I found out that Dexter is available in the UK, so I connected to the United Kingdom and there it is.
And this also works on your phone, computer, or tablet, allowing you to unblock content from over 40 streaming services.
If you sign up right now to CyberGhost VPN, you do not only support my channel, you will also get an 84% discount and you will get 4 months for free.
Click the link in the description. There are many differences within Mexico City, and Airbnbs are not common in all neighborhoods. In these light red areas, Airbnb is hardly present, whereas in these dark red areas, the number of Airbnbs is 20 to 25% of the entire housing stock.
That is a key difference between Mexico City and other cities, because in Mexico City this problem is very much concentrated in a few specific neighborhoods. And that started around the pandemic.
Since the coronavirus pandemic, the presence of foreigners has been rising in some parts of Mexico City.
When COVID got the world in its grips, many foreigners, mostly from North America, decided to move to Mexico temporarily to take advantage of lax COVID restrictions and the low cost of living relative to many North American cities. In Roma and Condesa, the number of Airbnbs increased between 30 to 50% in a single year.
In the Lux area of Condesa, some homeowners are turning to rental platforms like Airbnb. They can earn $1,300 a month in profit.
For homeowners, it simply made much more sense to charge a tourist $100 per night rather than to rent to a local for $500 per month.
So I found this one data set that summarizes it perfectly.
If we rank the 100 biggest cities in the Americas by affordability of a 3-bedroom apartment, New York ranks as the most expensive on the continent, but Mexico City ranks as the most expensive in Latin America. But compared to North American cities, Mexico City is still cheap. And that's just the cost of housing. The cost of living in general, excluding housing, is on average 60% cheaper in Mexico than in the United States. You have quick flight connections to some of the most beautiful beaches and towns in the world, and upon entering the country, you can get a 180-day visa.
And that's where Mexico City's mayor saw an opportunity.
Y ahora lo que queremos pues es impulsarlo todavía más. Como ustedes saben, el turismo es una de las actividades económicas que genera más empleos indirectos.
She wanted more of this.
Un turista que llega a la Ciudad de México, pues evidentemente busca un lugar para comer.
Tourism plays a big part in Mexico's economy. On a national level, it constitutes 19% of their GDP. In Mexico City, it's about 9%, and that figure can grow. Digital nomads support about 46,000 jobs in the city, and they contribute about $1 billion each year. That's an amazing economic opportunity that Scheinbaum wanted to embrace.
If you've seen my videos before, you probably already know where this is headed, because everybody seems to be making the same mistakes.
I did a video about Spain, which focused a lot on Barcelona. Here, they have a housing shortage of 7%. I did another video about the Netherlands. Amsterdam has a housing shortage of 12%. But get this, in Mexico City, they need 30% more homes. They have a housing shortage of 800,000 homes, and they have no realistic plan of solving this anytime soon. No matter the economic opportunity that digital nomad tourism can provide, if your policies encourage to make them come to your city, you will also need policies to house them.
And it's also not like Scheinbaum is not realizing any of this. Just look at this article here.
It shows a group of people that are smiling proudly for the camera.
Scheinbaum made housing and the quality of housing a constitutional right. But this article and this press moment was just to announce 3,000 new homes in Centro.
That's barely scratching the surface. The housing market in Mexico is like the Wild West. There's a major shortage of homes, hardly anything is built, and there's no control over the market. There's been incredibly high inflation, and the government's strategy to use digital nomad tourism for economic growth adds demand, where supply falls short.
So it is the way that they balance this that led to higher prices. And I found this one graph that summarizes it perfectly.
This is how much the cost of housing in Mexico City has increased year over year, while this erratic line is how much salaries have increased or decreased. And the long-term trends is that people's income has not kept up with rising housing costs.
Digital nomad influx in the capital is exacerbating inflation.
Those rising costs are displacing many of the city's long-standing residents.
The average monthly salary is lower for people who have informal employment than for those who are formally employed. They make $240 and $470 respectively, but the monthly cost for a family of 4 is on average almost $2,500. This simply doesn't add up. So how do people cope? The answer is that many people work more than one job. Many houses are occupied by more people for which they were designed. This is called overcrowding. And in 2020, about 1 in 3 homes was overcrowded. Another thing is that people just move away.
So I am actually married to a Mexican girl, and let me leave the studio here for a second. We met while I was on a holiday in Mexico, and I went to Puerto Escondido, and that's where we had our first date. And I got a picture here of the restaurant where we ate and where we later actually got engaged, if you can see that. So we spent a lot of time in Mexico City, and we had a cleaning lady there. And she was commuting every day for 2 hours to work and then for 2 hours again back home. And that is one of the things that is at stake here.
The good jobs are often found in expensive neighborhoods, and if locals are displaced, they'll have to commute. And that's what these protesters were saying. In a written statement, the organizers said, the protest was a result of years of failures by the local government to address the root of the problems. Gentrification isn't just foreigners' fault, it's the fault of the government and these companies that prioritize the money foreigners bring. And they called for greater rent controls, and that locals have a voice in larger development projects in their area, stricter laws, making it harder for landlords to throw out residents, and prioritizing Mexican renters over foreigners.
So that's what I would like the discourse to be about, because that's what the people were protesting. There was some xenophobic character at those protests, but that is not the core and foundational issue of this problem. So one last thing, if I may. You watched this video all the way towards the end, and if there was anything that you found helpful or if you learned anything, please consider subscribing to the channel and liking this video. That's the biggest support that you can give a small team like us.
Don't forget to click on the link in the description to get a special discount that CyberGhost VPN is granting to our subscribers. This VPN protects your data while you browse, and it gives you full access to all blocked content on the internet. It is totally risk-free, so check it out. Link in the description.